Welcome to this week's edition of FedNexus Law's Government Contracts Industry Report. My name is Kevin Joyce, and with me here in the studio is Taylor Hume to talk about his most recent blog regarding the GAO report on cloud computing. Hi, Taylor.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, tell me about the recent report regarding the status of cloud computing.
Well, I'll start off with a little bit of history. As you're probably aware, the Federal Cloud Computing Strategy report back from 2011 laid out the benefits of shifting to cloud-based solutions for the federal government. These plans eventually led to the Cloud First mandate, which requires federal agencies to consider cloud computing solutions as the new default for IT. The policy was intended to accelerate the pace at which the government would realize the value of cloud computing by requiring agencies to evaluate cloud computing options before making any new investments. If we fast forward to today, we've got the most recent GAO report that examines 7 agencies' use of cloud computing and the associated monetary benefits. The agencies that were part of the study were the Departments of Agriculture, General Services Administration, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, Small Business Administration, State Department, and the Treasury. These agencies reviewed additional cloud computing services that were implemented since GAO last reported on their progress back in 2012. GAO found that cloud services used by these agencies increased from 21 services in 2012 to 80 services in 2014. And that spending on the cloud increased from $307 million to $529 million during the same period. The GAO calculated the total savings and found that there were $96 million in savings across these 7 agencies attributable to switching to cloud-based solutions. While that seems like a huge improvement and a step in the right direction, when GAO looked at budgets dedicated to cloud spending from a percentage basis, they didn't see the same impressive gains. When GAO compared the percentage of each agency's IT budget spent on cloud-based solutions in 2012 to the percentage of each agency's IT budget dedicated to cloud solutions in 2014, the overall increase was just 1%. It makes you think, this cloud really isn't catching on like wildfire. GAO reported that the small increase is likely due to the fact that agencies haven't really evaluated cloud-based solutions for about 2/3 of their investments. That seems somewhat alarming in the face of the Cloud First mandate, and actually, as it turns out, agencies have not assessed the need for cloud computing for legacy investments, which deal with operations and maintenance, which could explain some of that. The agencies claimed that they would assess the need for cloud computing solutions when it was time for these investments to be modernized or replaced. So, assuming that there's a life cycle for these investments, I imagine the agencies will see them to their end. Interestingly, GAO found this to be inconsistent with the Office of Management and Budget Policy that calls for cloud solutions to be considered first whenever a secure, reliable, and cost-effective option exists, regardless of where the investment is in its life cycle. As such, the GAO recommended that these agencies assess IT investments that have not been evaluated for suitability for cloud solutions, and rightfully so, because the savings are quite significant at $96 million already.
Interesting. So what exactly does this mean for the contracting community as a whole?
Well, quite simply, agencies, especially the 7 that were part of the study we mentioned, will be looking for new ways to implement cloud-based solutions, and that means they'll be creating opportunities for contractors to provide those services. Let's not forget, there are roadblocks and challenges, however, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that's one of the beneficial things that actually comes out of this report, right? What the agencies have identified as their challenges and their hesitations about moving to the cloud. One of the major issues is that these agencies must meet federal security requirements, which change often to address new threats as the picture of cybersecurity continues to evolve. And another issue is that the agency network infrastructure may not be sufficient to support the switch to cloud. There may not be enough bandwidth, for example. So the reason an agency or parts of it aren't buying might be because they simply can't support it. Another issue, which wasn't identified in the report but I think is important, is that federal contracting officers are considering switching to the cloud in order to save money and become more efficient, right? I mean, that's the whole point. In order to do this, contracting officers are looking for plain numbers that support savings. Well, in order to make cloud-based solutions more attractive to commercial and government clients, there have been cloud contractors offering cloud solutions on, kind of a pay-as-you-go basis. The folks over at NextGov really do a good job of pointing that out, and while this may be an attractive selling point to private businesses, it's difficult for a contracting officer to equate that to cost savings. More importantly, it's an impossibility for agencies to spend money that has yet to be appropriated. So pay-as-you-go is definitely an issue.
Interesting. So what exactly are some of the things that contractors can do to overcome some of the challenges you just went over?
Well, I'll kind of take them one by one. At first, there's the security requirements. That's definitely a challenge for all cloud contractors and agencies alike. FedRAMP and security requirements change often to address new threats. Successful contractors will have to satisfy the FedRAMP requirements for security purposes, which will require, among other things, that contractors continuously monitor the system for vulnerabilities, report on remediation of those vulnerabilities, and make changes as the picture of cybersecurity evolves. This is time-consuming but necessary in order to be a successful cloud provider. In terms of agency issues, there's the infrastructure issue that I mentioned. Perhaps close monitoring of contracts awarded to IT firms for new critical infrastructure could give cloud contractors basically a timeline for agency readiness. And that's really the best you could do in that sense. Now, with respect to pricing, perhaps better payment terms that work in sync with the agency's payment schedule. Obviously, pay-as-you-go and multi-year plans are issues for agencies who deal with yearly appropriations. Finding a way to price solutions so that they're conducive for the agencies is definitely a key to success here. And let's not forget, at the agency level, there are so many issues with respect to just getting into a new system. There are cultural issues that the agency defines them as. And let's face it, there aren't many of us that get excited when having to learn a new system at work, and even fewer of us are excited to roll that new system out. So ease of implementation to help convert the reluctant will be key here. As GAO has cited that this quote-unquote cultural change will be a challenge for the agencies moving forward. But I think what you really take away from here, and finally, there's some other issues in the report, and I do encourage you to review those. But in the end, and what I want people to walk away with, is that understanding the agency issues with switching to cloud solutions can only help contractors improve their offerings and services. Now we've actually got a better picture of what those challenges are, and now we've got an idea of what we can do to overcome them.
So I understand that there's actually a request for information out on cloud computing. Can you tell me a little bit about it and what the goals of the RFI are?
Sure. Yeah, the response date for the RFI was actually in August, but it still appears to be outstanding. The basic purpose of the RFI, according to the GSA, the purpose of this change would be to improve the way that GSA offers cloud computing services through IT Schedule 70, increase visibility and access of cloud computing services to agencies, and to provide industry partners the opportunity to differentiate their cloud computing services from other IT-related products and services. Obviously, there are people that are already selling their services through IT70. I think this would just be would do a better job of increasing the visibility, like they mentioned, and would give contractors more of a chance. And I think the overall goals of the RFI are to get some feedback from the industry and other relevant stakeholders on a proposed new cloud computing service SIN, and to better understand how industry partners are selling cloud computing services today on IT Schedule 70 to support a decision on creating a new cloud computing services SIN.
Thanks, Taylor. That's really, really helpful information. Thanks for filling us in. For more on cloud computing, check out the FedNexus Insight website. We've got Taylor's blog up there along with some other blogs. And we'll see you next time on the Government Contracts Industry Report.